from there. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Emil Gouws. Very, very happy to have you here on this podcast called Brain in You.
Thank you very much. It's a big honor and hello from South Africa.
Yeah. I have been seeing the kind of work you do, the stuff you write about on LinkedIn, and that got me thinking that I should get you to speak to my audience. So I'll give you a quick background that the company that I run, Iyurved, um, it works on nutritional food products and therapies where we help train the parent who can then work on their children. So these are parents of children in within the age group of 2 to, I would say it can go up to 2021. So they would really gain a lot from your perspective, from your early years till date, when you are an advocate of autism, you're working, your early years in school, a lot of things that I have planned to ask you. So, do you want to give a quick introduction about yourself, Dr. Emil?
No, thank you very much. And like I said, it's an honor for me to be able to speak to you on your podcast. I love doing autism awareness, and especially at the times that we're living in. We need to do more awareness when you look particularly at neurodiversity, neurodivergence, and autism. But to give you a little bit of background, I am an autistic adult. I am married to a wonderful autistic young lady named Sammy. I'm 32 years old. I'm an international autism advocate where I do a lot of autism awareness all around the world. I represent underrepresented groups on the Commonwealth Disabled People's Forum, in which India is also a member, and I'm the president of the board of directors of the International Council on Development and Learning, which you might be familiar with, ICDL floor time.
Yes.
And I represent South Africa on various boards, internationally, locally, and on high political level as well. So that's a little bit of me, but I'm mainly a postdoctoral fellow where I do a lot of research on neurodiversity, neurodivergence. My main methodology, which I'm focusing on, is currently autoethnography, but I do a lot of research on autism in education. So that's me.
That's a lot that you do. And I will connect with you after the podcast to learn a little bit more about the research you do and something that we can do through nutrition because we work with a lot of parents uh, and mostly through nutrition and now through therapies where we are training the parents. So I think there's a lot of scope for research. So let me start by my first question. I'll take you, to the work that you've been doing. So you have described sensory blindness. This is a term that I read in one of your posts, where your visual sense, it dims in overload. So could you explain how parents can spot this in their children and what to do when it happens?
Well, thank you. And it's a very important question. Um, Let me tell you that sensory blindness is basically one of the most fundamental aspects when you look particularly at the different characteristics, the different experience that a autistic individual experience in different environments. But to come to point, many people understand blindness only as the inability to see, but sensory blindness is different. For autistic people
Mhm.
like myself and many others, it can mean being blind to certain signals
Yeah.
that others take for granted. For example,
Yeah.
I might not notice social cues or hidden rules in a conversation.
Mm.
Sometimes my brain cannot filter sound.
Mm.
So in a busy room, I hear every single noise all at once. It's like a storm.
Yeah.
Other times, I can't see or process an emotion in the same way neurotypical individuals do. But here is the paradox. While I might be blind to some signals, my other senses and insights can become very sharp. I can notice small details in people's emotions, their patterns that others might miss. We are connected. When we're connected to people, the people like look closest to, like myself and my wife's carer, my mother-in-law, my mother, Kimix, sensory blindness is not a weakness. It is simply a different way to perceive reality. Now, what keeps me inspired despite these challenges? I believe that every difficulty or every challenge that I experience, especially when it comes to sensory blindness, can be a message of hope and to tell people it's okay because it's a different way in which the brain works. My sensory struggles can make the world feel chaotic, but they have also taught myself and many autistic people as well resilience, creativity, and also deep empathy.
Mm,
What I've learned throughout the years that look, my role is not to fix myself, but I need to accept my sensory challenges in different environments
yeah.
so that it can fit into society. But to challenge society to open itself to difference is a main question. And I think that's why I'm advocating for this. So, one of the things that I want to mention to parents when you regard sensory challenges, especially sensory blindness, it's simple. Difference, first of all, doesn't mean deficiency. Sensory blindness is not brokenness, for instance, and it's not a tragedy because keep in mind, although the brain is differently wired, specific things needs to happen to be able to accommodate the individual. And if we have a more understanding environment, and parents make a significant contribution, if you can understand, you will be able to accommodate. And that is where awareness comes in. So, what is tragic is when society refuses to accommodate, refuses to listen, and refuse to listen. And of every individual have got a voice. And one of the things that I want to tell you is that how parents can accommodate is actually very simple because parents play a vital role that help their children feel safe, understood, and being valued. And when I mentioned accommodations before, accommodation doesn't always mean something expensive or medical. It first of all it means love and patience. For sensory challenges, one of the biggest accommodations is creating an environment where the individual doesn't feel punished for their way of experiencing the world. That could mean lowering for noise, creating awareness in different environments to tell people, or to tell people in the environment to lower their noise, or lighting in their home if it overwhelms them. Allow stimming. And I think that's also the things that we can talk about. Those hand movements or self soothing actions instead of trying to stop it. Thirdly, give clear and predictable routines because uncertainty can feel like chaos for the autistic brain. And most importantly, listen to your child.
Yeah.
Listen to your autistic individual. Even if they communicate differently, sometimes behavior is communication.
Yeah.
And another thing to end off, I also encourage parents to see their child's strengths. Yes, they maybe sensory blindness. Maybe the child doesn't notice social cues or struggles in noisy spaces, but there are also sensory gifts. Many autistic children notice details, patterns, and truths that other people might overlook. So instead of trying to fix the child, try to adapt the environment and celebrate the difference because that is how the family will grow.
Perfect. I want to take you back a couple of years, when you were growing up, and I read that you said that there was limited speech till you were 15 years old. So, in your journey, communication came much later. And, like you said, behavior at times is also communication. That's a wonderful statement. So, what were the turning points or strategies that helped you move on from gestures to full speech?
We are moving a long time ago. A time when I was non-speaking. And yes, I was non-speaking until the age of 15. And there was a time in our life where people thought that because I didn't use words, I didn't understand. But that wasn't true. And that comes back to the misconceptions towards
Yeah.
neurodiversity, neurodivergence, and autism as well.
Mm,
I had so many thoughts, feelings, and dreams, but my voice and my body couldn't, could not always keep up. I had the words in my head, the
mm,
sentences in my head,
mm,
but I couldn't pronounce it.
mm,
I was totally muted until the age of 15. And that time, if I think back about it, that time shaped who I am today because it taught me the value of patience, the value of alternative communication,
mm,
and of listening beyond words.
mm.
Because if you think about the world that we're currently living in, many parents and teachers get scared when a child doesn't speak. But silence doesn't mean absence. And because if you think back on the early 1990s, going into the early 2000s, when I was between the ages of 3 and I would say 12 years old, there was a big misconception because people thought that because I couldn't speak, I was absent, but that wasn't the case. Speech is only one way of communicating, and when it is not available, other ways must be found. For me, being non speaking was not a sign of being less intelligent or less human. It was simply a different way of existing. And in order for me to express my emotions, my feelings, I made use of I can use the word non-speaking, non-verbal, non-speaking hand gestures to express myself,
Mm.
to express my emotions because I couldn't verbalize it. But throughout the years, I've learned that my worth was not lied to how many words I could say, but to the life and
Yeah.
insight within me. And and although I went to speech therapy and occupational therapy from the age of 9 till the age of 10 years old, the continuous stimulation that I got in terms of therapy eventually helped me to communicate later on after the age of 15. And this is connected to the sensory environment
Mm.
as well, because the environment played a huge role as when it came to my communication. And when the classroom sizes were smaller in a specialist school that I was enrolled at by the age of 15, it contributed towards my communication. And although I couldn't speak full words, I made use of copied speech. And I believe now, at the age of 32, I'm now in my seventh year now, full communicating, full sentences
Very nice.
now, as I speak now. And I'm still continuing to develop my
This is
speech
amazing.
throughout the years.
This story of yours will bring in so much of hope because, like you rightly said, a lot of parents, teachers do give up hope. So, getting speech at 15 and then developing it further for the next 7, 8, 10 years, it's amazing. So
Yeah,
I really want to highlight this to the parents that you need the right environment, you need the right stimulation, you need to keep working at it, and it can just come. Look at the way you are talking now. It's amazing.
yeah, Vandita. It is significant. But there were various factors that contribute towards this. But also keep in mind that when you think about the times that we lived in, especially the awareness that's been created, look, compared the early 1990s until now, there's a major difference when it comes to autism awareness, autism
Yes.
acceptance.
Mm.
There's a lot more advocacy, there's a lot more autistic adults, a lot more parents that are advocating for their children. And when you look particularly at where we are currently in the field, but we are trying to, when you look particularly at the advocacy movements that's currently going on, we are trying to shift from the medical model towards the social model of inclusion, acceptance, accepting the individual differences. And when you look particularly at the early 1990s, when I was born and when I grew up, there wasn't that understanding of society when you look particularly at neurodiversity and the differences of these individuals and these students. So it was very, very difficult to grow up because society tend to accommodate what they see, but what they don't see is which they're struggling to accommodate and assist. And when it comes to communication, as someone who can share my story globally, I carry these experiences with me.
Yeah.
But I think I can share my story alongside those who are still non-speaking,
Yeah.
reminding the world that their voices also matter. Whether they come from, they come through words, gestures, devices, or silence, every person needs to be heard. And when I was non-speaking, the world almost forgot about me, and that's how I felt. But today, I remind the world again that silence can still carry wisdom and communication is more than words.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. I want to ask you, I want to double tap on this that what is one thing you believe parents often overlook about identity of autistic children's, how they see themselves, not just how the world sees them?
Identity development is very, very, very big. And there's a major gap in the research when you look particularly at identity development. And I think one of the biggest challenges for parents is shifting how they see their child's identity, right? Too often, autism is presented only through the lens of deficits, and especially where we are currently with latest news reports when you look particularly at autism. It's focused basically on a lens of deficits, what the child cannot do, what is delayed, what is different, what does parents do wrong.
Mm,
And parents might worry, will my child ever be will my child ever cope in society? Will they ever fit in? Will they ever contribute towards society? And that's a big concern. But autism is not the absence of identity. It is an identity, just as we understand someone's culture,
mm,
language, or religion as part of who they are. Autism is part of their identity. That's who they are. Parents don't need to see autism as something to erase. Instead, they can embrace it as a fundamental part of the child's story. When parents see autism as an identity, not a tragedy, everything shifts. They start to notice their child's strengths, passions, and unique perspectives. And when they understand their child's neurodiversity, they will be able to accommodate them. They can start understanding and realize that their child's way of communicating, moving, sensing the world. And, and it's not broken, it's simply different. The one thing I wish every parent
mm.
can understood is that your child's identity is not hidden behind the autism diagnosis. Autism is part of their identity. And when you love, accept, and celebrate that identity, your child learns to love themselves too. And that is the foundation of resilience, self worth, and hope.
Yeah.
Autism is not something to cure
Yeah.
out of a child,
Yeah.
it's something to cherish within them.
My next question is actually linked to the last line that you said, that most of the parents are focusing on fixing the deficits. From your perspective, Dr. Emile, what strengths, what strength-based practice should they start with right now? Something practical, which is also transformative.
Yeah, um, it's very interesting because when you look about interventions, now intervention is a very big word and is a very important, especially when you look particularly at the ages between 3.5 and 6 years old. But let me tell you something. For too long, autism has been approached through a deficit model. And I always refer back to the the when I look particularly at the medical model, because that is where I need to put on my disability advocacy hat. People tend to always ask, what is wrong?
Mm,
What is missing? What can we need? What's needed to be fixed? Right? That mindset limits children and hurts families. It hurts, and we take it personally. A strength based approach is totally different. It starts with the question, what is strong? What is unique? What brings this child joy and motivation? Instead of focusing only on what the child's struggling with, we build on what they already can do well. For example, and I'm just giving a example from what I read from what I read in literature, for instance. So if a child loves numbers, that strength can be used to teach reading or social skills. If a individual or child is non-speaking but has a strong memory for songs, music can become their communication bridge. Or if a child notices details that others miss, like I do, that skill can be celebrated and encouraged rather than seen as odd or weird. Strengths-based interventions don't ignore challenges. They just don't define the child by their challenges. They show the child that they are capable,
mm,
that their interests matter, and that their way of seeing the world is valuable. When we do this,
mm,
children grow in confidence. They feel that they belong, and parents move from fear to hope because they see a future where their child is not only surviving
yeah,
but thriving. You know, strength-based interventions reminds us that every autistic child has a spark.
yeah.
Our job is not to extinguish it,
Mm.
but help and build so that it can shine.
That's amazing. Yeah. I want to end with this one last question, because you're somebody who's balancing academia, advocacy, and you have a beautiful personal life. What daily habit or routine, Dr. Emile, has helped you maintain mental well-being and growth?
Let me tell you, um, mental health is a big concern, and I need to put on my research hat and my self-advocacy hat. And I think that's also one of the main benefits that I contribute towards this field. We've got the highest suicide rate of neurodivergent individuals in the world. If I talk about I'm talking specifically from a South African perspective. And that's connected to the higher political climate, unfortunately. And I'm going to mention a couple of statistics to give you a little bit of background information. Um, it's very difficult because the living age of a neurodiverse adult in the world is 35 years old due to depression anxiety, and mental health concerns. It's a challenging situation. We've got the highest unemployment rate of neurodivergent individuals in the world. It feels that these individuals do not have a purpose, and that contributes towards mental health challenges. And unfortunately, suicide is the biggest factor when you look particularly at the living age of autistic adult because of depression, anxiety, and it goes back to education. And when you ask this question, when you refer to balancing life as an autistic adult, academic, and advocate, look, it's not easy because when you look particularly at the different awareness that's currently going on. For instance, when you look personally, like for instance, our sensory world can be overwhelming. Um, as a autism self-advocate, from global self-advocacy to daily life, it's often collide with moments wherein my body needs quiet, order,
Mm-hmm.
and retreat. And luckily, I've got Markim, um, myself and my wife's carer, my mother-in-law, she reminds us. But mental health is a consistent concern because for many of us, the autistic community, anxiety, burnout, and even depression is very real. This comes not from autism itself, but from living in a world that's often misunderstands and excludes the individuals. And I'm sure when you look particularly at India as well, we've got similar challenges. And the thing about this, what's wonderful about the world of autism or autism in the world is that although we've got different cultures, we are from different regions, we are from different countries, although socioeconomic circumstances might differ, we've got similar challenges. Because when society doesn't accommodate, it weighs us down.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when you ask about balance, it means being intentional. It means,
Okay.
first of all, routine and structure.
Yeah.
For instance, that gives stability in a world that feels unpredictable.
Take. Yeah.
In our family, we talk about an ecosystem where we support each other,
Mm-hmm.
and those who stand with autistic people on a daily basis contributes towards that mental health satisfaction in terms of understanding that that individual is not alone. Because with support, it lifts you up and you feel secure and you feel supported. Thirdly, self regulation. Stimming. For me personally, I stim because to retreat in silence, to take sensory breaks instead of figure or fighting my needs, that contributes towards my mental health as well. And again, for me personally, advocacy and boundaries, because I've often reminded myself that I cannot change everything all at once, but I can bring light step by step. So
Yeah.
I want parents and listeners to know that taking care of your mental health is not awareness.
Mm-hmm.
It's an act of courage. Autistic people deserve therapy, safe spaces, and understanding, just like anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we live in a time where mental health is also becoming a major talking point as well. Because balancing life and mental health is a journey. Some days, for me personally, some days I stumble, but I've learned this truth that even in
Yeah.
our hardest moments, and that is for every person, our lives has got purpose, and purpose is what keeps us moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the anchor line in this whole thing is that autism is not a burden. The
Yeah.
burden is when society denies us support on different avenues that contributes towards our mental health challenges.
Yeah.
Because balance comes when we honor both our challenges and our strengths.
Yeah. Oh, beautifully said. I think I will end at that note, Dr. Emile, that autism is not the burden. And I will go back and I hope parents take a lot of learning from your experience and story about how you built communication and how communication is it's not just speech, it's also behavior, and especially focus on sensory blindness. So these are my takeaways. I've had a very wonderful session with you, and I know parents will gain from this. And thank you so much for taking time out today.
No pleasure. Thank you, Vandita, and thank you for this opportunity.